I'm 18 years old and I have a net worth of exactly $65,000. To almost anyone my age, that sounds like a completely insane number. To most people, it probably sounds like I have already won the game of life and that I'm financially set for a very long time. But when I actually sit down and run the math on my early retirement plan, the results are incredibly sobering. When you really break it down, what it costs to live in a modern Western society and what it costs to actually buy back your freedom, $65,000 feels like both everything and nothing at the same time. Today I am going to break down exactly how I built this net worth. I'm going to show you every single dollar and where it came from and exactly where it is sitting right now. But before I show you the breakdown, I need to get something very clear. I know $65,000 at 18 sounds crazy. You need to understand that this number represents 4 years of relentless working. I started working when I was 14 years old and I have not stopped since. This number is a result of aggressive saving and living far below my means. While my classmates were going out every weekend, spending money on expensive dinners, buying designer clothes and taking vacations, I was picking up extra shifts. To be completely honest, I sacrificed a massive portion of my teenage years. I threw away a lot of social activities and the normal high school experience just so I could spend my life working and saving. So this number came from a lot of hard work, extreme dedication and a few very strategic decisions. However, there is a massive piece of the puzzle that is still missing and I'm refusing to hide from you. If you spend any amount on financial YouTube or TikTok, you will see teenagers claiming they are essentially self-made millionaires. They will sell you a course and tell you that you can do it too if you just wake up at 4 AM and take a cold shower. They conveniently leave out the part where their parents gave them a massive head start. When I turned 18, my parents gave me an incredibly generous birthday gift. They gave me $18,000, which represented $1,000 for every single year I had been alive. I am aware of this massive privilege that comes from having parents who are in the position to do that, but I also want to be clear about how I handled that money. I did not view $18,000 as a lot ticket. I did not use it to buy a used luxury car to look rich in front of my friends. I did not use it to buy expensive watches or book a luxury vacation. I view that money as a financial foundation. My parents worked hard for that money and it is my responsibility to protect it as if it was my own. Every single penny of that $18,000 went straight into my investment portfolio. I never even let it touch my daily spending account. So if we subtract that gift from the total, it leaves us with $47,000. That $47,000 is entirely my own money. It is a direct result of my own labor, my own hustle, and the capital gains from my investments over the last 4 years. Let me explain exactly how I earned it. When I was 14, I got my first job working at a restaurant owned by a friend of the family. I was doing basic physical work. I learned very early what it feels like to trade an hour of my life to get a set amount of cash. That job was not about getting rich, but it was about building the mental muscle of going to work even if you don't want to, and learning how to save everything you earn. As I got older, I transitioned to a local bakery. I was making $30 an hour, which is essentially minimum wage here in Switzerland. But I was willing to put in the hours. I would go in 3 times a month. Those long days on my feet taught me a very valuable lesson about scalable income. I realized that physical labor had a very strict limit. There are only so many hours in a day, and your body can only take so much exhaustion before you burn out. If I wanted to increase my income, I needed to stop selling my physical energy and start selling my mind. So I started tutoring younger kids from my old school. Because I was good at academics, I was able to charge $55 an hour. This was a massive shift for me. I was making almost double what I was making at the bakery. And I was doing it sitting down in a comfortable chair just explaining math and science to a younger student. This taught me the power of leveraging special knowledge. But I did not stop there. I trained my brain to constantly look for financial inefficiency in my daily life. During my school breaks, I noticed that all of my classmates were incredibly lazy. They wanted drinks from the supermarket across the street, but they did not want to make the 5-minute walk to get them. So I became the middleman. I offered to go buy the drinks for them, but I charged every single person a 50-cent markup for the convenience. I was making multiple extra dollars every single week just for taking a brief walk. It was never really about the small changes. It was about developing a hyper-focused mindset. When you learn how to monetize every single opportunity around you, building wealth just becomes a math question. You string together the restaurant checks, the bakery wages, the tutoring money, the micro hustles, and the investment growth, and suddenly you look up a few years later and you have tens of thousands of dollars to your name. But earning the money is only half of the battle. The most important part of this breakdown is where your money actually is sitting right now. If you keep your money in a traditional checking account, you're actively losing wealth every single day because of inflation. Cash is essentially trash if you're just sitting on it. So out of my $65,000 net worth, do you want to know exactly how much of it is sitting in my bank account right now? $150. That is not a typo or an exaggeration. I literally only keep $150 in cash. Now before I go any further, I need to put a massive disclaimer on this. I absolutely do not recommend to anyone watching this video to keep their bank account that low. Almost every financial advisor in this world will tell you to keep an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash. And they are absolutely right to give that advice. The only reason I can get away with keeping $150 is because of my specific highly privileged living situation. I am still living at home. My expenses are incredibly predictable and basically non-existent. More importantly, my parents can act as an absolute safety net. If something catastrophic were to happen, or if I had a massive medical emergency, my parents would be able to absorb the financial damage. I do not have to worry about missing a rent payment or becoming homeless. Because I have that ultimate safety net, I can afford to take extreme risk with my capital. So you might ask yourself, where are the other $64,850? They are entirely invested in the stock market, but I am not using the standard advice of just dumping it all into a broad market ETF like the S&P 500. While ETFs are fantastic and probably the best choice for 99% of people, I have taken a slightly different path. My entire portfolio is made up of individual stock picks. The vast majority of my money is heavily concentrated in high-quality dividend growth stocks, combined with a few specific growth stocks to capture the market upside. I chose this specific strategy because my ultimate goal is not to just have a big number on my screen when I'm 65 years old. My goal is to retire in my mid-30s. To do that, I do not just need capital appreciation, I need cash flow. I need a portfolio that actively pays me a salary just for holding it. By picking individual dividend growth stocks, I am slowly building my cash ATM. Every time one of those companies pays me a quarterly dividend, I take that cash and immediately reinvest it to buy more shares of that exact same company. It creates a snowball effect. The bigger the snowball gets, the faster it rolls down the hill, and the more snow it picks up along the way. Eventually, the goal is that the dividend stocks alone will be enough to cover my basic living expenses. When that day comes, I no longer have to trade in my time for money. I will be completely free. Having this much money invested at 18 creates a very strange psychological shift. It is a feeling that is hard to describe to someone who has not experienced it yet. You have enough money to feel the weight of financial responsibility, but you do not have nearly enough money to actually feel financially secure. When you have $65,000 in individual stocks, every minor market downturn feels significant. A red day in the market can mean watching $2,000 or $3,000 temporarily vanish from my screen. Watching that value fluctuate requires a very strong stomach and a completely detached emotional state. You have to constantly remind yourself that you are playing a game that spans decades and not just a few weeks. This is exactly why I am pushing so hard to grow my income outside of my standard W-2 employment. Relying entirely on a salary and the stock market is actually quite risky if you want to retire early. If I want to hit my goal of escaping the system by my mid-30s, I need to drastically accelerate my timeline. This is exactly why I'm starting this YouTube channel. This is why I want to pivot away from computer science and get an MBA in finance. I am shifting my entire focus from just pure savings optimizations to income diversification. Every single extra dollar I can earn from my side hustles, consulting, or eventually content creation is a dollar that gets fed directly into my dividend machine. If you are watching this and are in a similar position, or if you are just starting at zero and trying to figure out your own escape plan, I want you to take away a few core things from this breakdown. First, stop trying to look rich. Looking rich is the fastest way to become completely broke. If I had spent my money on depreciating assets like cars and clothes, I would just be another stressed out young adult right now. Secondly, understanding the massive difference between selling your physical labor and selling your knowledge. Find a way to transition out of hourly physical work as fast as you possibly can. And third, if you have a safety net like I do, use it to take aggressive risks while you still can and are young. And lastly, do not let your cash sit in a bank account and rot away to inflation. Put it to work. Make your money work harder than you are. In my next video, I'm going to talk about how I graduated in the worst possible job market and still somehow managed to come out on top. If you made it this far into the video, I genuinely appreciate your time. I know it takes a lot of patience to just sit down and watch a raw financial breakdown like this. If you found any value in my transparency, please leave a like and let me know what your current financial goals are in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button and let us keep building this escape route together.